We are delighted to welcome our next guest right here in the Muse, Peter Lydon. Welcome.
Good to be here.
Yeah. Hi, Peter. And you, of course, have come with your accomplice, our old friend
here.
Rosalind Scanlon from the ICC. Yeah. Peter, you're here because you made a fantastic film in 1991 about Radio Caroline. It's on at the
Irish
ICC
Cultural Centre
in Hammersmith on the 3rd of May at 3 p.m, followed by a Q&A when we're going to have another conversation, which I very much look forward to. You better tell everyone a little bit about Radio Caroline first.
Well, the reason we're doing this showing at the Irish Cultural Centre is because the film has particular Irish connections, if you like.
Loads of them.
Number one being that the man who brought it into life was a very charismatic Irishman called Ronan O'Rahilly, and who was also the grandson of the O'Rahilly, who was a famous Irish rebel who died during the Easter uprising, and in a sense Ronan's kind of was following on his footsteps as being a rebel and against the establishment, etc., etc. And he created Radio Caroline, or he came up. He was somebody who was big into music. Used to look after acts like
Georgie Fame.
Thank you. And he couldn't get his acts on the radio, and he came up, or an idea sort of arrived on his lap, which was that if he created a pirate station, a radio station on a ship in international waters, he could beam his music into the UK, and he couldn't be touched by the authorities
because he'd be 3 miles offshore.
Exactly.
Yes.
The
rule is
exactly.
Yeah, we started from much the same reason, actually.
Wow.
Yeah. I can't see the sea there.
They call this the beach.
Yeah.
People probably now, with music coming out of every orifice, every shop, Spotify, it's literally everywhere. The top musicians of the day, and in fact the top musicians from back in the day, are all well known to everyone from age 6 to age 95. Just describe for a moment the environment into which he launched this idea.
Highly controlled musical scene where the BBC was the gatekeeper, and it allowed the British population 1 hour a week of pop music on a Sunday, I think it was. Alan Freeman, who continued for many years afterwards, but basically 1 hour a week, and that's all you could get, unless you could tune into Radio Luxembourg, which was a bit kind of hit and miss.
208.
Yeah, so that was a signal that would have to cross the English Channel, and it was the best you could get. And even then, EMI and Decca were pouring money into Luxembourg, because that was the only way they could get their music played.
Yeah. It crackled a lot when you listened. Yeah. I remember the crackles.
Yeah.
So in much the way, I suppose, that Lepke Rebel, our mentor, who started DBC in the 80s when the pirate radio was put it on top of a tower block rather than put it out to... He just said, right, we're going to do this.
Yes. I mean, when you see the film, you see there's a lot of kind of shenanigans behind the scenes for him to work out how to make the money, who he was going to partner with, but he was one of those people who was driven, and he just thought, I need this amount of money to buy that ship, and then it's going to work. And also, importantly, his father, again, this is all in the film, but I'll sort of say his father owned... Is that right?
I don't think anyone is being cruel to that dog, but we can't be sure.
That's almost like a Tony Blackburn reference. Does that mean anything to you?
It does, yeah. Tony Blackburn, of course, was the very first DJ.
He was one of the first DJs, and who then transferred to Radio 1. So he kind of, as did Johnny Walker, etc. But Ronan's dad owned a port on the coast of just above Dublin, so he knew he had somewhere to take his ship to get it fitted with this huge mast without being rumbled by the authorities.
Right, because it was a small world in those days.
Yeah.
It was a small world. People might have seen the The Boat That Rocked.
Yes, indeed.
Richard
Curtis.
Yeah, which is a similar kind of story.
Well,
but the real story is almost more extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, obviously what he did, I think his story is definitely inspired by Radio Caroline, which he then, in a sense, turned into his version of a piece of entertainment. Whereas I think his story is about a boat, whereas I think A Pirate's Tale, my film, although it's about a boat, but it's a bit like an iceberg, it's really about what happened in London around the sort of the shenanigans on the boat. You know, it's about how London was affected, how the UK was affected, and how these guys, just in a sense, changed the culture.
Yeah, but it also changed youth culture in Ireland,
Yes.
especially in the countryside, because before that they would have been listening around the big valve radios with the family. You'd listen with your family. Suddenly, at the same time, all these transistor, portable, battery-operated little trannies were being bought by the teenagers. Suddenly, they could listen to radio away from their parents. They'd listen in bed. They'd listen in the fields. They had access to pop for the first time, so it totally changed the culture in Ireland, youth culture. So it's fascinating.
Yeah. I didn't realise actually that it could travel that far, because I thought it was essentially.
Well, there's an answer to that actually. Is that it didn't at first, because they had the first boat was parked in the English Channel, and then they ended up having they sort of took over another radio station called Radio Atlanta, and they sent it up to be parked off the Isle of Man. So that was the intention was to get the north of England, but it obviously went the other way too.
Yeah, and it was so popular in Belfast, they opened a record shop.
Ooh,
and
really?
Radio Caroline opened a record shop, and young people, when on the day of the opening, Simon D was brought over, and he was treated like a pop star. The kids would line the streets waiting for him to arrive, and it was a really big opening. I mean, it was amazing.
He was a big star.
Simon D was a phenomenon, wasn't he, at the time?
His kid went to primary school with me, actually.
Right.
Where was that?
Bousfield, which is also where Zakia went.
Well, weirdly,
Bizarre
I live in Winchester.
So that's where my wife's from.
Really? Okay. All right. Okay. So some years ago, I was in a street in Winchester of no particular name, and I hear this voice of somebody, and I think that sounds like Simon D. And there he is, calling from beyond the grave. and Simon D had ended up in a council flat in Winchester, bizarrely.
I remember that.
Oh, you do? Well, there you go. You know. And anyway, there you go. That's my Simon D story.
Amazing.
Well, he had his own chat show and everything.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He was
No, he
brilliant.
did D-Time.
He was huge.
D-Time.
Yeah.
And talking of Simon D, actually, the last time I saw Simon D was in The Italian Job, where he stars as a kind of weird little cameo. And next up is Chandler from The Gate. I was doing a panel with Chandler at The Gate about 115 years of The Gate, only last week.
Wow.
Gregsy, should we play the trailer, which is fantastic? I mean,
how does that work on radio?
I checked it this morning. The first 30 seconds is music, but there's talking all the way through after that. This is the trailer for A Pirate's Tale.
Happy Easter to all of you. This is Christopher Moore with the first record program on Radio Caroline. The first record is by the Rolling Stones, and I'd like to play it for all of the people who worked to put the station on the air, and particularly for Ronan. I can't get no satisfaction.
Hello. Ronan O'Reilly, the originator of Radio Caroline, begins at the beginning.
All I wanted to do was to sort of break Georgie fame, to get him off the ground. And I've had to record the guy, I've had to start a record label, and now it looks like we have to start a radio station. And it literally was that kind of moment.
This was it, this was the pitch. A ship was parked off the coast, in the sea, 3 miles outside, with a transmitter on it. The whole fucking country would tune in and turn on, and that's it.
And he said, when can you start on the ship? So I said, well, when would you like me? So he said, well, how about tomorrow? He took me out there, and that's how I ended up at Radio Caroline.
Piracy. That's what's happening here, with the connivance of almost every teenager in southeast England at any rate. We're bound for Radio Caroline, the pirate ship that for over a year has given pop music to something like 20 million listeners.
That was the other thing that was happening that was a big influence for me anyway. You know, the Irish-American president, you know, after the sort of grey 50s, and this breaking of the mold had happened at the beginning of the 60s. I flew to Dallas to a place called Continental Electronics, who were the transmitter company. And on the way over, magazines on the plane, and opened this magazine. It was this headline, Caroline Smiles and Disrupts Government. And literally, it was named to sort of, you know, link in with that Kennedy, the idealism, the hope, the possibility of things were going to be different.
Loving awareness is free.
So that is A Pirate's Tale, which is on at the ICC on the 3rd of May. Go to the ICC, irishculturalcentre.co.uk website for tickets.
3 o'clock screening.
It would be fair to say that Radio Caroline changed the world of music because it made, you know, it was just at the beginning of the kind of British beat kind of wave, as the Koreans would say, which then spread to America, spread around the world, spawned bands, you know, with the Who, the Kinks, the Small Faces, all sorts of bands. And that actually gave all those young people access to music.
Yeah, I think the big thing it did was take the music out of the city into the backwaters, into the countryside, you know, and you know, there's something that Mickey Mouse says is that he got to understand what people wanted by knowing what people were listening in the villages, in the little towns, not in London where the hipsters were kind of probably more selective.
Yeah, and we want everything free as well.
Radio Caroline also changed the show band scene in Ireland. Right. It really, because it allowed a lot of the show bands started forming when Radio Caroline came out and started copying, doing cover versions of all the pop songs, and then eventually they set up record labels and started writing their own songs. So it really shifted the whole culture. Before that, they were doing big band orchestra music, Cayley music and stuff. So it totally changed everything.
Did Ronan O'Rahilly, did he know the effect it was having on his beloved island, or, I mean, was he a London Irishman by this time, or did he still have contacts going back and forth?
I don't really know, to be honest. I think he would be aware of, I'm sure he was aware of the effect. I mean, he himself was very much London, you know, living it up in a Mayfair office full of, where they sort of taught DJs how to do their job, where they had a sales force. It became a huge enterprise. I mean, the audience was 20 million. Yeah. The income was huge, and so for him. Yeah.
They opened an office in Dublin, an advertising office.
Oh, did okay, I didn't know that. Okay, that makes sense.
And the Dubliners got their first break on Radio Caroline.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And the Bachelors.
And the Bachelors.
But that's another story.
Wow.
It all came to a sticky end, didn't it? Because their nemesis was the Postmaster General, bizarrely enough, who I think was Tony Benn at one point in the early 60s. Yes. And the story doesn't end well because the Postmaster General gets his way in the end with the Marine Broadcasting Act.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, what happened was Radio 1 was created as a kind of a way, as the sort of antidote, and it did succeed to some extent of pulling that audience away from the pirates into something more legitimate. You know.
Also starring Tony Blackburn.
Yeah. I mean, it was still they still sort of. When you looked at what Radio 1 was doing at the early days, it was still not quite getting it and not quite allowing enough music, you know. So they were pretending to answer the needs while actually really just trying to get rid of this annoying thing that was causing problems and I mean, to be honest, the problem with Radio Caroline, the subplot is that there was a lot of ships started turning up, and there was a lot of trouble, a lot of battles with.
It was like the Straits of Hormuz.
Yeah, it was worse. Yeah. Talking of which, yeah.
One of the reasons the BBC couldn't play enough music was the Musicians' Union, because they'd done a deal for Needle Time with the Musicians' Union.
Okay.
I know this because when my father launched commercial radio in 1973, he got a better deal than the BBC had. It was his proudest achievement, right to the bitter end.
I mean, I think just the last thing about Ronan is that to the end of his days, he still had this vision of what he wanted Radio Caroline to be, which was this thing that was beaming love, or he had an agenda that was quite at odds with the sort of financial side of it in a way. And he was a dreamer in that sense.
And you met him through Bob Geldof?
Yes, in fact, it was Bob Geldof who got to know Ronan at the Chelsea Arts Club, and Ronan would sort of tell him all these amazing stories. And then Bob came to me because I'd already done a film with him, and sort of kick-started this and sold it into the BBC as an arena documentary. Yeah.
Well, I've seen the trailer. I haven't seen the film yet. Right. I'm really looking forward to it. Some beautiful shots of, it's funny, you shot some stuff in the 90s in the office overlooking Albert Bridge that almost looks like you shot it in the 60s.
Yeah, that was the idea. It was kind of a reference to some stuff that had been shot by Mike Hodges for a documentary in the 60s. He'd done a film about Ronan in the 60s, and I was kind of echoing that in a way, homaging. Is that a word?
Yeah, homaging. Thank you, Peter, for coming by to see us. I'll see you again on Sunday, the 3rd of May.
Yeah, great.
Thank you, Ross, for bringing...
Great. It was great.
Thank you, Shane.
The channel controller's telling us to get off the air.
Ian Ross,
yes.
He's one of the characters in the film.
Well, can I just say something about Ian Ross, because his wife is here as well. So Ian is the secret weapon in the film, in the sense that when I discovered this person called Ian Ross, who had all these great stories, he was kind of like the sort of the eyes and ears of that time, and so he had a very interesting take on Caroline and the history. And he was just a kid. He was like a teenager, effectively, that Ronan had met, and Ronan very quickly recognized that this guy could take him to where the money was, which is his father. And when I told Ronan that I was going to be talking to Ian, he was saying, "You don't want to talk to Ian. He doesn't know anything." He didn't sort of want, he
knew too much.
He was, because Ian didn't suit Ronan's narrative, but obviously I needed them both, and Ian is a fantastic part of the film, and I'm still hoping he might turn up to the screening, but we're working on it.
Well, I'll definitely be there. I urge you to come. It's a lovely place to be on a Sunday in the middle of a bank holiday.
It's lovely, yeah.
Thank you very much, Peter. How do people follow you? Have you got a website, an Instagram?
I have an Instagram at PGLYDON, PG Lydon.
Like John Lydon?
That's right, yeah. He's my brother from another mother.
He's my dad.
Brother from another mother.
Thank you guys so much. I don't know why I thought of this song when you were talking, but this seems to me like the sort of song they would play.
Imagine me and you, I do. I think about you day and